Kamala Harris, her unwillingness to put forward policy decisions until the 12th hour is not helping her. I don't think the policies that she has put forward recently, especially, are not, I don't think that they're attractive to the left. It seems to me that Kamala Harris and her campaign is very overtly and brazenly abandoning the left and openly courting the right. I mean, she's not only is she receiving the endorsements of like hundreds of Republicans and people like Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney, she's also bragging about it. I mean, she's not just kind of embarrassed by it. She's embracing it. You know, speaking with Bret Baier on Fox News, things like that. She's really trying to convert Republicans to her cause, it seems, rather than putting forth policies that would appeal to her left-wing base. And I think it's also concerning to me that we're seeing almost a revisit to 2016, where instead of appealing to the progressive left, she's simply vote shaming them. She's basically saying you're a crypto Trump supporter if you don't if you're on the left and you refuse to vote Harris. And so instead of making attractive policies, it's just more of the same vote shaming. We literally saw the same thing with Hillary Clinton in 2016. So I think they should know better. They should know that that's not a winning strategy. It's lost for them before. But just like in 2016, I doubt that there will be any sort of self-reflection, insight, or awareness that it's their own fault should they lose. And I don't know that they will. We haven't really seen an October surprise yet. I don't know if there will be one. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of developments going on internationally that obviously could have an impact on the election. Recently, there was the Biden administration threatened this arms embargo against Israel if they don't let aid into northern Gaza. Now, I think that's an election time ploy. I think it's political theater. I don't think it's legitimate, especially because their threatened embargo doesn't happen until after the election were to take place. But I think it does indicate that they are trying, the Biden administration is attempting to at least look like they care about what's going on in Gaza, even though they're not stopping military aid to Israel. They're continuing at this moment to send arms and even troops to Israel. They're sending 100 troops right now to help them as the tensions rise with Iran. So
it is kind of a funny dichotomy that we're seeing, because we are seeing Kamala Harris and the Democrats continue with the trend that we've really seen over the last 8 to 10 years, where they're embracing neoconservatism. They're embracing the endorsements of Dick Cheney and Alberto Gonzalez. And, again, like you're saying, really courting Republicans and not really providing any real, left-wing social democratic sort of policies. I think really what it boils down to is neoconservatism, but with identity politics, basically. And it's an unfortunate trend that we've been seeing, where all of these Bush era neoconservatives, they're finding a home in the Democratic Party now. And if you object to that and you want to vote for someone like Jill Stein, who's actually on the left, you're called a Republican. So it's this very weird sort of doublethink that's being exhibited, where you're seeing this, blue-brown alliance, this, Democrats and neocon fascists joining hands. But if you support Jill Stein, or just say you are opposed to genocide and the genocide that the Biden administration is facilitating, then you must be a right winger. So it's just a very odd sort of doublethink.
definitely the cognitive dissonance of that is huge. Both we love the Republicans, but also you are a Republican and worse than Hitler if you don't vote for us at the same time. Ridiculous.
Yeah, and again, it's just unfortunate, and it's very strange how much they've been demonizing Jill Stein recently. Honestly, the Democratic line of attack has just been seemingly all over the place lately. They were really hung up on J6 for a while, and then there was this whole narrative around Trump sending COVID tests to Putin. Lately, they've been saying Trump is mentally ill because he had played some music at a rally. But for a day or two, there was a heavy focus on Jill Stein, and there was this new commercial that the Democrats actually put out against Jill Stein, which is a historic thing. They never targeted a third-party candidate before.
Jill Stein, Green Party candidate for president. So why are Trump's close allies helping her? Stein was key to Trump's 2016 wins in battleground states. She's not sorry she helped Trump win. That's why a vote for Stein is really a vote for Trump.
Jill Stein, I like her very much. You know why? She takes 100% from them.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Obviously, Jill Stein is polling very well with younger voters and with Muslim Americans in the swing states. Michigan is a big one. There's a heavy Muslim American population there, and there's polling suggesting that 20-30% of those voters could go to Jill Stein. So but it seems as though, in my mind too, just based on the fact that we're seeing things trend in Trump's favor overall, that Jill Stein is going to be the scapegoat. So they're setting that up. They're saying, it's her fault, probably regardless of how big the margin is going to end up being.
Definitely. It's definitely some future proofing. I think it's definitely serving two purposes, like you're suggesting. One being, should they lose, then they're setting up Jill Stein to be a massive scapegoat for them, which to an extent she was in 2016 as well. It's the same thing playing out again. But also I agree that the way in which Jill Stein is polling right now threatens them to the degree that they think it's worth spending money on a campaign ad, showing Jill Stein's face morphing into Trump in order to attack her. Yeah, it's very interesting to watch. And I think that, again, it's interesting as well because I don't think you would see this level of or this degree of threat from Jill Stein, obviously, if we weren't seeing what's going on in Gaza. If there wasn't a genocide going on that the Democrats just gloss over and want to ignore, or give a few words to in terms of the suffering of Palestinian civilians before going on to promise that they'll never put any limits on Israel and its right to what they call its right to defend itself. So they have to have somebody to blame rather than their own policy decisions. So Jill Stein is that person because she's the only one who's saying, as a presidential candidate, I'm against this genocide. So they have to demonize her. They're really stuck between a rock and a hard place because there's no way that they can, the Harris campaign, the Democratic Party, that they can make a policy decision against the genocide while keeping their AIPAC lobbyist donors and the huge support that they have from American, liberal Zionists.
Yeah, it's a strange thing to see Senator Fetterman. He's actually been going after AOC on X because he's such a vocal Zionist. So there is, we've seen the AIPAC go after members of the squad as well, primary them. So there's definitely a push to get rid of any dissent within the Democratic Party. And this is probably the one issue where there is even a tinge of dissent because we've just seen again this push to effectively turn Democrats into a modern day neoconservative party, especially in the case of Russia and Ukraine. There wasn't really any dissent among the squad or Bernie Sanders or anyone else there. But yeah, this just going back to the this shaming, it's so ridiculous. It's so, again, unfortunate, and the fact also that they're suing to keep Jill Stein off of state ballots. That's a whole nother dynamic to this, where they say that they're standing up for democracy and Trump's a threat to democracy. Meanwhile, they're trying to push Jill Stein off of state ballots, and they're trying to shame people out of voting for her. And it doesn't even really logically make sense as far as like the whole spoiler narrative too, in my mind, because Democrats claim somehow that they effectively own those Green Party votes, which are only about 1% of people who vote, right? And instead of going after everyone who doesn't vote or any other third party candidates, they go after the Green Party and try to shame them. But by the same logic, couldn't the Republicans just claim all of the libertarian votes and thereby offset or even imaginary sort of increase their own margin? Like it just again, the whole thing is sort of nonsensical and just sort of repugnant.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. And of course there's a huge percentage of people that don't vote. And going back to how important the Gaza and Palestinian genocide is, they are ignoring the fact that I think it's something, my numbers may be a little off here, but as far as even back in June, I think it was, that some polling was done that showed that I think it was over 60% of likely American voters wanted a ceasefire. And then 77% of likely Democrat voters wanted a ceasefire. So to ignore that huge of a majority of your own base, it is ridiculous, really.
But again, they believe in democracy.
Right. Yeah, and they definitely believe in representing their constituents and the people that vote for them. And they definitely want to uphold all of democratic values for sure.